All right, ladies, so we're going to continue to look at the Maroons today. The second Maroon War, we're going to look at the Bush Negroes in South the, the Caribbean mainland. All right, so the Maroon. All right, so I believe it was a year ago, CXC asked the students this question. They asked in the paper too, uh, for the students to name the different two groups, to name two settlements from the Windward and the Leeward Maroons. All right. So there's one thing I need to tell you is that the Maroon villages are Maroons in Jamaica. They are segregated into two parts. They lived in the very high parts of the mountain. So the Blue and the Jonker Mountains along this area are where the Maroons would have settled, and also the Cockpit Country. Very beautiful parts of Jamaica in terms of the most mountainous parts of Jamaica. In this area that you're looking at my screen, which is on the west side of the country, is what we have the Windward Maroons. And in the Windward Maroons, we have Maroon Town, Accompong. A Maroon Town was actually called Trelawney Town. Accompong, which was one of Nanny's brother, I believe he would have run that area. And Trelawney Town was controlled by Cudjoe. So all of this area here is the Leeward Maroon. So know the two areas. So you have Maroon Town or Trelawney Town and Accompong. These are two Leeward Maroons. Now we have Windward Maroons, which is on the eastern side of the island here, within the Blue and the Jonker Mountains area. And if you go into the exam and they ask you to name two, you can name them Charlestown or Nannytown, Moortown. Charlestown, Nannytown, Moortown, or Scott Hall. These are the Maroon Town here. I believe as a class, had it not been for COVID, we would have gone to either Accompong or Charlestown, because last year the students went to Accompong. The year before that, the students went to Charlestown. So this year you were scheduled to go, I believe. No, so I can't deal with the long driving to St. Louis. No, I'm not thinking that.
It's better though, sir.
Repeat.
I say it's better.
No, I want it for a field trip. If we had a field trip, we just go for a 30 minutes drive and just get back in at school, so you can go to your other classes for the day. But to go down, the last time we went to our compound, we reached back about 8 in the night. I was so tired anyway. So that is, so ladies, you know the Leeward Maroon and the Windward Maroon. If they ask you this in the exam, you know the different groups. You should know it. So let us now look there. The Maroons in Jamaica had two. We look at the developments of the Maroons last class. So what we're going to look now at the Maroons. So after the Maroons would have developed their communities, the British uh, didn't approve their settlement. So they ran away. They lived in the mountains. In fact, the area that they would have settled first would have been the Blue within the windward side of the island, which was this side. This was the first settlement here along this side. First settlement outside of what happened in what this mountain name again that we talked about yesterday or the day before?
Wonderful.
Wonderful, yeah.
Yes, the Wonder Bowlers Mountain. So we know for sure that they would have destroyed the Wonder Bowl. This was the first settlement. So they left Carindon and they went into the Blue Mountains and they settled there. But one of the things that happened is that the Maroons, so the causes of the First Maroon War is the the causes of the First Maroon War is that the Maroons attacked the British slave plantation. So every minute the Maroons would have gone in and attacked the British slave plantation. How did the Maroons attack the slave plantation? How did the Maroons attack the slave plantation? Sorry, Ashley.
Yes, sir.
What the Maroons did to attack the slave plantation?
So they had different ways. Sometimes they ambush them, and
Ambush. Yes, you're correct. Ambush. What else?
sometimes they'd probably cause an uprising inside, which would cause confusion, which would make it easier for them to attack.
Confusion. Yes, very good.
Or they would just burn down their crops.
Burn the fields. Very correct. Any other way in which they would have attacked the slave plantation? Any other? Yes, go ahead, Corey.
And not that I can think of.
Okay. Hemmings. What other way that they would have, the Maroons would have done to attack the slave plantation? Yes, how the Maroons attack the slave plantation?
So did they also use guerrilla tactics or guerrilla warfare?
Yes, but remember, you're correct, but they would have used guerrilla warfare in the mountains.
Sir,
Go ahead, from
they would have like sabotaged the plantation.
They sabotage the plantations. Very well.
Stolen livestock.
They would have
Stolen the livestock.
stolen the livestock. So they go into the plantation, stole the livestock.
Sir, would they burn it down?
They
Or-
also burnt down the fields. As there's no record to say that they burnt down a plantation, but they like a great house. But they set fields on fire and stuff like that. So they attacked them. How you feel the British going to react in Jamaica? What was the reaction like?
They were very angry, so they were constantly trying to one protect their livestock, like in terms of they're trying to secure up their livestock, and of course, man are coming and steal the property. So you're going to, of course, they're going to try and execute them. So they're going to try and catch them, chase them back into the mountains, and possibly. Well, I don't know if this makes sense, but um, in terms of that, they were trying to clear their borders, for lack of a better term. Like I said, they'd implement like more God, I don't want to say security guards, but yeah, so they would find ways to protect their livestock. They would try their best to catch the persons in the act, or like try and trace them back up into the mountain so they could fight with them. And what's the word?
You're correct. So one of the things is that we know for sure that they would have the Maroons would have attacked the slave plantations. In what the planters are going to do, they are going to be very concerned and very angry, because one of the first things is that the Maroons were not supposed to, nobody gave them any land according to the British. All of this land belongs to us. So we don't know how you settle up there and we can't find you. We know you're up into the mountains. Wow, the mountains look so far and it looks so dangerous to go up there. We know you're up there, you're hiding up there, but we really don't know what to do. So what is going to happen is that the English is going to try to seek out the Maroon settlements. And in 1734, they are going to attack. In 1734, they are going to attack Nannytown, which is right here. So they are going to come in, attack Nannytown. completely going to destroy. They're going to destroy Nanny Town, destroy the provisions, and in fact, Kuju, who was actually living in Nanny Town at this time with Nanny and the others, they would have ran to this side. You see how far them reach? They reached to the cockpit, and that's how they set up their settlement there. So in 1734, when Nanny Town was attacked, the provision grounds were destroyed. The Maroons refused to accept British rule because in 1663, the British offered the Maroons full freedom if they surrender. Full freedom and lands if they surrendered, right? And the Maroons refused to surrender. They said, listen, we are not giving up. We are not going to surrender. Even if you give us full freedom and even if you give us land, we are not going to surrender. We don't trust you. And so from earlier 1663, the British tried to make some form of attempt in dealing with in restoring the relationship between them and the Maroon. Now remember, notice lady, this is 1663 and the Maroon War started from 1728 and ended in 1739. So it seems as if it was a good more than 60 years that the Maroons would have settled and would have caused havoc on the British. The British would have tried to deal with them. Yes, Brianna?
Sir, I was saying that in 1663 when the British offered the Maroons full freedom and stuff, would that be after the Maroons killed their leader? I don't remember his name.
Could you?
Yes, sir.
No. So from earlier 1663, they would have offered the Maroons. Because remember, this was their original settlement. In 1663, they would have settled within this area. They asked them to, they would have sent message and asked them if they could, stop the fighting with us, stop going destroy our land, all of these different stuff. And after that, in 1734, the British went in, destroyed Nanny Town, and some of the Maroons ran to the cockpit country, which is here. It is quite a lot of running. Right? So that's another reason for I've answered your question.
Yes, sir.
Good. And then the next thing, ladies, is the desire for freedom and the formation of their communities. The Maroons wanted to form their own communities. That's one of the reasons for the cause of or to maintain, because they already formed their communities, they want to maintain their communities separate and apart from the British. Now, Kuju, as we know, was leader of the Maroons, and he was the brother of Nanny. What are the course of the war? What happened? So this is it. We know from around here, 1663, the British should have offered the Maroon land and freedom if they surrender. They refused. 17, how many years that would be? So
16 what, sir?
1663, yes. And you minus that from 1728.
65.
65 years. So 65 years, oh goodness, that is a lifetime. So for 65 years, the British tried to seal a deal with the Maroons, but the Maroons refused to seal a deal with them. And so in 1728, as previously, the British attempted to attack the Maroons, but they would have failed. By 1730, ladies, the Maroons in 1730 elected Kuju as their general, and he formed a regiment. He formed his army. I believe he had about 2 armies that he would have formed, or 2 bands that he would have trained them into military, tactics and all of these different stuff. So 1728, constant attack by the British attempt, but they would have failed. Every time they go up in the mountain, something just happened. Either them drop off of the mountain or the Maroons ambush them or push them off, but something just happened. That's how life is. And by 1730, the place gets very militarized. Once Kudju establishes his army, they are going to attack the plantations even more. By 1732, ladies, the British soldiers were defeated by the Maroons again. It was a big defeat for the Maroons because this time the British would have organized quite a lot of soldiers, and the Maroons beat them left, right, and center. By 1733, the British in Jamaica said, listen, no, we can't allow the Maroons to take over, because if they take over, guess what? We're going to lose our land, we're going to lose our plantation, we're going to lose everything. And also it could encourage the enslaved people to revolt. And in fact, some of the enslaved people ran away to the mountains during this time to join the Maroons. And once you run away, you're going to bring news, you're going to tell them what they're planning. So in 1733, the British passed a law to build a barracks to attack the Maroons in Titchfield. The British said, listen, we are now going to go to full war with them. All right? So they passed a law to build a barracks in Titchfield. So Titchfield is in Portland, and it's somewhere along this area here, which is not too far. No, it's to the sea, which is like here, the sea, and Nanitown is inland. So that is one of the things that is going to take place. So the war is going to take place now, ladies, between both sides, and the Maroons are not giving up. Although they would have gone in, so the only success happened was when they demolished Nanitown, and some of the Maroons there escaped and jumped over the nearby cliff. They said, listen, we are not going to surrender, it is death. And they died. Some of them, and while could you know, at this time in 1734, he ran to the cockpit country with other Maroons. So although he ran away, some Maroons remained in the Blue Mountains. They hid in the Blue Mountains, while Kudju established a new settlement in the western side of the island. So the First Maroon War, so that would have been what characterized the First Maroon. In 1739, the Maroons, they were constantly attacked. Their provision grounds were destroyed. Why do you think that the Maroons would have agreed in 1738 to stop the fighting with the British? Why the Maroons decided that?
Sarah, would it be because the British continually destroyed where they were living, where they settled, and constantly came into their settlements?
So that is one, is that the British always were on an attack for them. And the other thing is that the British would have destroyed their provision ground. What is the importance of a provision ground?
It provides food for you to eat.
It provides food. So if every time you plant a banana tree or you plant something, some yaman, the Maroons, the British destroy it, then obviously the Maroons are, and you know that your banana tree and planting take a long time to mature. You just don't plant it and the next day you eat it. Sometimes as you plant your bananas and you're planting and it just reached fruition, that's the time the British came and destroyed it. And so the Maroons were tired of fighting. Same thing with the British. The British, all they were doing was that they spent quite a lot of money getting in troops into Jamaica to fight the Maroons. They went and they got dogs from Cuba. They, the assembly which governed the island at the time, every minute they are passing laws, and it was not successful. And the next thing that we're fearful is that a lot of the enslaved persons used the opportunity during the First Maroon War to escape and join the Maroons in the mountains. And they were losing their enslaved people. So the British said, listen, we have to agree with the Maroons to stop this fighting. We cannot live like that. It makes no sense. Both of us losing. We are losing settlement and provision ground. We are losing money. We are losing our enslaved people. We are losing time and resources by passing laws. How are you supposed to pass laws for Maroons when the Maroons are, you have no control over the Maroons? And 44 times you are passing legislation, right? Makes no sense. And so they came together and a treaty, they signed a treaty together, both the Maroons and the, what do you call it now? Both the Maroons and the British signed a treaty, and the Maroons were represented by Cudjo, and Colonel Guthrie represented the British. So this is how they would have signed the treaty. They signed it under a silk cotton tree. Now we know the silk cotton tree is very important. It's a lot of significance to the silk cotton tree. So what they did was that they exchanged hats, and then both persons would have stick their thumbs, and they would have pressed their thumbs together with the blood. They over go ahead.
Sir, I was going to say you.
Okay, so they did a blood oath where they both Cudjo and Guthrie both stick their the thumb over a glass of white rum, and they put it together, squeeze their fingers together, and the blood dropped into the rum, and they drank it. That was how, that was part of the part of the, what do you call it now, the signing of the treaty. So we know for sure, where could you have signed this treaty? Which part of the island in 1739?
Western part.
The
There?
cockpit country.
Cockpit
In
country.
in the cockpit country. What is this area also called?
The
To
wind.
windward.
Leeward.
The leeward side. Very good. So remember, leeward is west. Sounds stupid, but leeward is west and windward is east. All right, so they would have signed here. Later on, while could you sign for this area in the leeward side, Quaco signed for the windward Maroons here. All right, so that's how they would have signed, and the war came to an end. Where am I now? Yes, the war came to an end at this time, right? What were some of the terms of the treaties? One of the terms is that full freedom, they would have received full freedom, 600 acres of land. They had the right, Maroons had the right to hunt for pigs anywhere except 3 miles limit to the plantation. So once there is a plantation close by, you're not supposed to, what do you call it now, go close 3 miles to a plantation. We can hunt for pigs any place you want to hunt for the pig. Food items, they can also get food items anywhere you want. They cease the hostility, no more fighting. The Maroons also agreed that, listen, we are not going to take no more enslaved Africans from the plantation. Who is there remains there. Who outside stay outside. They also agree to assist the governors if there's any slave rebellion. So if there's a slave rebellion, then they agree that they would help to suppress the slave rebellion. And they did. All right? Same thing during, we call that slave revolt again, Sam Sharp rebellion that you're going to study. The Maroons help the whites to capture the enslaved people who would have rebelled. Yes. Same thing from, I know this is not a slave rebellion, but this is a rebellion that happened after slavery. The Morant Bay Rebellion. The Maroons were the ones who captured Paul Bogle and George Williams Gordon and the others and brought him to be hanged. Yes, so they agreed that they would help the governors. Now, the two white men were supposed to be appointed and live in the settlement. So they agree that, listen, we're going to allow two white men to live in the settlement. And also the Maroons established their factories, they established their plantations, not the plantation, the farms and all of these different stuff. And they actually went to trade in the markets. So they went to the towns and they were able to trade in the towns. Go ahead from here, Brianna.
Sir, I was going to say that they had to apply for a license to sell.
Yes, also. But some of them they had to, but most time they just take up themselves and just leave. Right? Yes,
Yes, sir.
Thorpe. Go ahead, Thorpe.
I don't mean to be shared with very engaging and enriching lesson. But will this conference is about the classroom?
I didn't hear your question clearly. You're breaking up.
Will the PowerPoint put up on Google Classroom? Because I'm trying to take notes and I can't write this fast.
Oh, I think it is already on the.
I don't see.
Yeah,
It is there, sir. It is there.
Okay. Yeah, man, it's there. Put them up.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So the terms of the treaties, these are some of the things that they would have agreed. All right. The next thing, ladies, is so this is end the first Maroon War. Another Maroon War going to take place, which is the second Maroon War, and this would have happened in 1795. Where this
Excuse me, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, it stops. The PowerPoint that you placed in Google Classroom, it stops at the survival of the Maroons.
All right, so I'll upload this new one immediately as the class is through. All right.
Yes, sir.
The next Maroon, the second Maroon War happened in 1795. Where it happened? Here, Trelawney Town. What is another name for the Maroons who lived in Trelawney Town?
Leeward Maroon, sir.
Leeward Maroons, yes, but the town had a different name.
No. No.
Kojostown. Kojo was the leader of the town. Huh?
Trelawney Town, Charlestown,
No,
Charlestown over there, so.
is over here. Another name for it is Maroon Town.
Oh.
All right. So the Maroons. So in the second Maroon War, these Maroons over here, peaceful and, well, I wouldn't say they are peaceful and nice, but they didn't take part in the second Maroon War, right? But the Maroons here in Trelawney Town were the ones who were involved in the second Maroon War. So we're looking now at the causes of the second Maroon War. One, the Maroons wanted more land. They feel like the land that they got or the land that they received was limited. And they wanted more land.
Sir, them
right?
lucky so them even get any.
But they,
Yeah, right, is their country. The British not forget none. Them
yes,
come the people them.
yes, true. But they wanted more lands. Another cause for it is that remember that two captains, white persons, were supposed to be, based on the treaty, live in the village or the Maroon settlement with them. So one of the thing happened is that they had a captain there. The captain or the white person that lived in the village was Captain James. And Captain James was seen as a very nice man. They loved Captain James. They had a good relationship with him. Captain James, they were seen as humble, nice. He walked around barefoot, he talked with them, play games with them. Him just never behaved hype, and they love him, right? They felt that they had a good relationship with him, and and so what the British did was that the British said that they are going to replace Captain James and they are going to bring Captain Kraskell. Now, Kraskell was not a very nice person. He's very uncanny, stayed by himself. Uh, he tried to speak down to them. Although remember that their settlement, it is their settlement because based on the treaty, they received their settlement, it's their land. And he was not so nice. So the Maroons, they petitioned the governor. The Maroons petitioned the governor and they said to the governor that, listen, we need back Captain James. They need to put back Captain James in our stuff and get rid of Captain Crossgill. And the governor said, listen, we are not listening to you. Another thing that was going on is that what was going on during 1795 was when the Second Maroon War started. What would have been another impact that would have caused the Maroons to rebel? What was going on during 1795?
The Haitian Revolution.
The Haitian
The
Revolution.
Haitian Revolution. And so the governor at the time said, listen, the Maroons were encouraged by the revolutions taking place in Haiti. He said that the French had persons in Jamaica going around and telling the Maroons that they need to fight the British. And so the Maroons were inspired by the Haitian Revolution, and I don't know if this is true what the governor said, but to some extent there's some truth to it. The next thing is that the British, there was some level of violation of the terms of the treaty by the whites. All right? What was the violation? This was it. Some Maroons went into Montego Bay. Let us show you a map. So this is Maroon, Trelawney Town, and this is Montego Bay. Remember that they would have gone into the markets in Montego Bay to sell their goods and their food and all of these different stuff. They had access there. And two Maroons went into Montego Bay and they flogged them in Montego Bay, right? Because they said that they stole pigs. And the Maroons were not happy. The Maroons were not happy with the fact that their fellow Maroons were flogged. Why you felt that the Maroons were angry? Why?
Sir, who wanna be angry? Imagine you go through all of this and you get your freedom and stuff, and you try to be somewhat civil with the white people, and then them turn on and beat you, and plus you already don't like the white captain. They might insult you. You don't feel insulted because it's like, what does it mean? I am free. You can't flog me and beat me like a slave. I am free.
Free, all right, so that is true. Next, Chantel Banton.
So they were angry because they were given the right to hunt pigs as long as they were 3 miles away from the plantation, sir, and they normally go to Montego Bay. So I think that's why they were angry.
They were angry because that is the main reason, though. Because they felt that, remember, if a Maroon should do anything wrong, there are different group of people have the different laws, government. Any form of punishment that's supposed to take place is the Maroons who are supposed to, what do you call it now? The Maroons are the ones who are supposed to administer punishment, right? It is like me. Look at, so if you look at me, say for instance, I am a white person and not even white person, I'm going to you as a parent. I am a parent, my son is Yovel. You are Banton, you have your mother and father, you do something wrong. The appropriate action if you do something wrong is for me to go to your parent and say to your parents, listen, you know, she disrespected me or do whatever. If I take up on myself and I go and beat you now, right? That's gonna cause problem between me and your mother. You get what I'm saying? So it was something, it is a similar, like that analogy could also be applied to why the Maroons felt disrespected. And so after that now, ladies, the Maroons decided that, listen, we are going to go to Spanish Town to talk with the governor. On their way to Spanish Town, by the time they reach St. Anne, they are going to Spanish Town. So they leave from here. By the time they reach St. Anne, which is around here, Spanish Town.
They walk.
Well, back this time they would have had their donkey, right? That would have been the mode of transportation. They wouldn't have horses, but they would have had their donkey. And so by the time they reached St. Anne, the British at this time, good question though, very good question. By this time, the British said, listen, the governor said, listen, I don't want to hear nothing from you. Go back to your settlement. And if you don't behave yourself, we are coming inside there to destroy your settlement and take over back the land. That's what the British said. I have no time to have any conversation with you. And in fact, what the British did was that the governor did was that he imprisoned the Maroons. By this time, ladies, where am I? So by this time, ladies, he refused to speak with them, which is right here. The governor now going to send message to the troops and said, listen, prepare yourself for war. Just like that. He declared martial law. What is martial law? If somebody declared that a governor, prime minister of Jamaica should declare, what does that mean?
Military war.
Military, but it's actually mean, martial law actually mean that you kill. Once somebody move, shoot and kill. So they declared that on the Maroon settlement in Trelawney Town. They refused to meet with them, they imprisoned them, and they declare war. They call out the militia to go and fight with the Maroons. Another thing is that the Maroons now, they were surrounded by British troops. The Maroons, the British also built a fort close to the Maroon settlement. So you know that they had access, and and they also went in and they attacked the town. 38 Maroons surrendered. And those 38 Maroons who surrendered and said, listen, all right, we can't deal with the fight in Britain. Not Britain, governor, you have all the say. We surrender. Instead of people them surrender, what they did was that they imprisoned them. Next now is that war is, so while when they invaded the town, that's the British, the Maroons now, not the British didn't invade the town, my bad. The Maroons heard that the British were coming, So what they are going to do, they set the town on fire and they went deeper inland. Me, not destroying my town. I have to protect that area. The troops went in and they destroyed the provision ground. They raided the Maroons continued to raid the nearby plantation. The troops said, listen, the thing is that we are not going to allow you to win this war. That is now the British say, we are not going to allow you to win the war. Like how we had to just bow down to you in the First Maroon War. This time you will have to bow. And so what is going to happen now, ladies, is that the troops they're going to bring in more troops into Jamaica, and they are going to go to Cuba and they are going to get 100 dogs, those very bad dogs, right? To come in, and they let them loose and attack the Maroons. And so the Maroons surrendered. Why do you believe that for the First Maroon War, the British were not able to be successful, but the Second Maroon War, they were able to be successful? Why I believe that they were able to be successful during this time? What were the factors that caused the British to be successful during the
Sir,
Second Maroon War? Yes.
so at the first war, sir, they never really knew that much about them to like defeat them, sir. But then the second time around, they went into their communities, they learned stuff about them, and
Very,
so
very good. So for the
Yes, sir. I'd say that. So they learned about their strategies and how they work and all of that stuff.
remember people were living in the community with them, like two white people. So I don't know, they could be undercover spies. Who knows?
very
Yeah.
well, so very well. Yes. Anybody else continue?
So did they know where the villages were like all the last time they didn't know where how deep in they were, but now they knew where the villages were located.
They knew. So by this time, the Maroons, by this time for the Second Maroon War, the British knew all the different routes, how to get there. They knew the hiding spot. They knew everything. So when I set the dog, I said, listen, dogs, then they right up there, so in that mountain top.
Sir,
Go up
plus the
there for them.
Maroons maybe like let down the guard because they thought everything was good, you know?
Exactly. That
Maybe
is
they have
it.
more resources.
Very well. You're correct. And so, ladies,
Sir,
these
they
were
made the British trick them.
the big trick. And so what is going to happen now is that the Maroon settlement in Trelawney Town was destroyed, and most of the Maroons who were living there were shipped to Halifax in Nova Scotia, which is in Canada, and they send them away on ship, send them away. It makes no sense for you to be here, send them away. And so Nova Scotia, once they reach Nova Scotia, they stay there for some time, and then they send them to Sierra Leone in Africa. And that's how the Maroons, that town was completely destroyed. People live there today and they say that they are Maroons, but when I went to Accompong, they said the people there are not Maroon. People, they need to decide that, right? The next thing, ladies, the
Sir, they
bush,
could be, you know, because
repeat?
somebody could have hide and come back and then them have kids, you know? So it's
Yes, you are correct. Now, ladies, another thing is the bush Negroes of Guyana. So the Guyanas are located here, right here in Central America. So today we have Guyana, Suriname, and French Guyana. These are the Guyana areas. The bush Negroes lived in Suriname, which was Dutch Guyana at the time. And so what is going to happen is that a governor from Barbados fled Barbados, went to Suriname, he established plantation there, and a war is going to develop between the Bush, a war going to develop now between the British and the Dutch. And so what is going to happen for the Bush Negroes is that while the British is fighting, European fighting, what you would do, Miller, if you see both two white groups fighting, and you have the British had their slaves, the Dutch had their slaves, what you're going to do? War is taking place.
Flee!
Yes, you run. So You find a way how to live. And so what is going to happen? A lot of the Africans are going to run away from the plantations because everybody was focusing on fighting over land and all of these different stuff. And so they never went into the mountains because all of that area is pretty flat and it's very swampy. And so they are going to go into that area to live. Now, ladies, there are several different groups of bush Negroes. Just know two. Know how to spell the two types of bush Negroes because they asked you to give examples of this in the exam. So just know the two bush Negroes that lived at this time. All right? And we still have bush Negroes today. They signed a treaty with the bush Negroes. Several treaties, because remember there were several different groups of bush Negroes that would have run away from the plantation and established settlement, and they signed several treaties with them, one in 1749, one in 1761, one in 1767. That's when they would have signed the treaties, right? I told you earlier that the Guyanas, all of this area is the Guyanas. What is now Guyana? Suriname was once called Dutch Guyana, and we have French Guyana, all of these areas. The bush Negroes really live between Guyana, here, within this area, they would have lived. Quite a lot of them, the interior. All of the lands here are very swampy land. And they lived within that area. What were some of the treaties that they signed? So they didn't really fought any major war, the bush Negroes and the Dutch, but they would have signed treaties, and the treaties that were signed, they said that, listen, every year the bush Negroes are going to receive guns and ammunition from the Dutch, right? The bush Negro is going to receive these things. Why I believe that the bush Negro is going to receive guns and ammunition? What's the reason for receiving guns and ammunition from the Dutch? Would you give your enemy guns or ammunition? Why? Why they gave them that? Why was that a term of the treaty? Why was that a term? Austin, Nelson. Why that was a term of the treaty to receive guns? Anyone? Cariel?
Sorry.
Repeat.
Sir, I don't know really.
When we studied
I guess
about
They were allies.
not allies, but guess what? Remember when we studied about the mahogany estates, sorry, not estate, the mahogany production, why they enslaving the mahogany area had guns?
When they were going out into the wild, if anything attacked them, they could defend themselves.
Very good. Anything like animals or things like that. And so if you're living in the, we call it the bush, then you can have attack from any form of animals or insect, and you need guns to protect yourself. And that's one of the reasons for the treaty. The next one is that you return any runaway slave, and they had to keep outside of the city, and they receive the lands in the interior, and any form of slave rebellion that is taking place, they would help to assist in suppressing the slave rebellion. So that was the reason. Now, we know the factors that would have aided in development of the Maroons. Most of the bush Negro settlement is that the British lived on this side, the coast, close to the sea. So if you notice, the capital city here is on the sea, coast, the coast, all of the coastal area. So they settled along here, and they left all of this land on the interior free. Nobody settled there. Even up to today, the settlement pattern in there is very small. Most of the people in this country live on the coastal area. And so what is going to happen is that they left those areas free, so they allowed them to settle freely. The geography of the place is that they had quite a lot of land and a lot of bush and forested areas, and they also used guerrilla tactics. Some of the difficulties that the bush Negroes faced were that they had problems when it comes to water, insects, dangerous animals. If you live in those bush, remember this area is close to Brazil. You know, Brazil is right here. The Amazon is right here. So can you just imagine? And the Amazon has one of the world's largest snakes. You have snakes to deal with, and you have also this animal here to deal with, the jaguar. You had this one to deal with. Just imagine, that's why they have to have the guns, because the bush Negroes had to deal with this. In fact, the bush Negroes wore the teeth of these animals. This one here, this tiger-looking aggie, I think they call them tigris at the time. They wore the teeth as chains. So you know that is a lot of them that they killed. To fight these animals were very, very dangerous. Sorry. How did they survive? They survived from farming, fishing, hunting, and they built their house in such a way that they build the house and they plant around it. And they depended on the Dutch for guns and ammunition. Sorry, ladies, I'm so sorry that I had to rush this topic. I did 3 topics in one today. First Maroon War, Second Maroon War, and the Bush Negroes. It's a must. I must move on from Maroons. Next week when we meet, we are going to look at they call it now.
Sir, how many left do we have for the week?
Repeat. Next week?
How many live classes do we have for the week?
2, just 2 classes. So you have 3 classes for the week, 2 live and 1 not live. So on Monday, you're not having a live class, but on Tuesday and Thursday, live class. That's when you are going to do the group presentation.
Sir,
right.
which topic we're going to next?
Repeat.
Which topic are we going to next?
So once we are finished with resistance and revolt, I am going to spend 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to do metropolitan movement as a core, just for you to answer the multiple choice question, not to answer an essay question. All right? So just the core. When we meet again, not next week, but the following week, I'm going to go through the syllabus with you so you know where we are going. All right? So ladies, we are through. Now remember that if you are doing, these are 3 topics: resistance and revolt, indigenous people and the Caribbean, and Caribbean economy and slavery. For the exam, you just need 1 from section A in terms of doing the short answer question, the writing part of the exam. Just 1 from section A. So if you don't like resistance, you can study resistance for the multiple choice. But say, for instance, like Caribbean economy and slavery, you study everything on the Caribbean economy and slavery for the short answer paper. So don't pressure yourself to say, all right, I have to study. Some students say, okay, I'm going to study everything for the short answer paper. Indigenous people and European, Caribbean economy and slavery, resistance and revolt. Remember, from section A, you just need to do 1 topic. Just 1 A. And so you can choose resistance and revolt. Ensure that you study everything in depth for that so you could answer the question. But when you're doing the multiple choice, you have to study everything for the multiple choice. Understand, ladies? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So ladies, enjoy the rest of the day.